Broadcast the rhythm. Go live, Vegas on the screen, feeling the flow, so pristine. Boom, as the beats align, electric dreams, they intertwine.
We just need to forget about everything. Put away our problems. Get along with each other and we just need to forget about everything. Put away our problems. Get along with each other and we just need to
All right, welcome on in, everybody. We are off and running on a Monday on Go Live Vegas from the Go Live Vegas studio. It is student of the game, Brett Lawson, here for you as we are live on all of our social media and digital platforms. And man, oh man, am I happy to be back in front of the camera and behind the mic for you all, because I talk about it ad nauseum regularly, how Monday is the premier how October is the premier month in the world of sports media and the world of sports talk. And when you host a sports talk show like this one, you are absolutely frothing at the mouth for a month like October and early November. That whole period is just jam-packed with things year in and year out on the sports front that makes shows like this so fun. But when you witness a World Series like we just witnessed for the past week, it makes this especially fun. In particular, when you may just maybe witness the greatest World Series in the history of Major League Baseball. And yes, as we sit here a couple days removed from that Game 7 now on Saturday night, I do not think it is much hyperbole to say. And the fact that I am opening baseball with this, a return, episode, if you will, the bounce back, the comeback episode of Student of the Game, I'm opening with baseball, and I am damn proud to be doing so because I could, quite frankly, dedicate this whole show to baseball. By this point, it's etched in stone. The Dodgers are currently celebrating their champion at Chavez Ravine. They did the whole parade. They're in the stadium. They're drunk. They're happy. They're celebrating. It's a sight to behold. Whether you love them, whether you hate them, they have established themselves as the current regime, going back-to-back, the first team since the Yankees in 90 and 99 and 2000 to do so. And now they're going to be the first team to attempt a three-peat in baseball since those Yankees as well. Something that's becoming more common in sports, right? You have the Florida Panthers going back-to-back. They're looking for a three-peat. The Chiefs did it this past February. The Dodgers are going to be doing it. You're going to have OKC looking for a back-to-back repeat. Like, we may be in the era where teams are truly trying to solidify themselves as dynasties, and that alone would be enough to talk about. But, people, how else can we begin the show with just emphasizing again how incredible that World Series was? Say what you want about the result. We'll get into that later. Say what you want about the outcome of it all and what it means for both teams and what it means for the sport of baseball. That's fine. But this World Series, from Game 1 to Game 7, collectively was as good as any, not only World Series or baseball postseason series I've seen, but any postseason series in the history of sports. Before I get into the nitty-gritty of it all, looking at both teams, I just want to read this off because I found this earlier today, and a lot of these stuck out in my mind, kind of fragmented because you pick them up over the course of the series as you're watching it because the series was just so eventful. Let me go ahead and run down some of these bullet points that actually went down over the course of this 7-game series. The 2025 World Series was the first to feature all of the included. A pinch hit grand slam from Addison Barger, 2 extra inning games, 18 innings in Game 3. We all remember how that was. That was exactly a week ago last Monday. And that was 3 games in, and we thought it was an absolute marathon. And lo and behold, what was to come? If we only knew. And we were exhausted after 3 games. And then you have another game that goes into extras in the ultimate Game 7 that determined it all. You had a walk-off homer in it, featuring Freddie Freeman in that Game 3. You had a 7-4 double play to end Game 6, which is what allowed Game 7 to happen ultimately. You had back-to-back homers to lead off a game in Game 5. You had a complete game from Yoshinobu Yamamoto, his second after he did it earlier in the postseason when we saw him do it against the Brewers in the NLCS. You had the first 12 strikeout, 0-walk game pitched in the history of the series by Trey Savage, the rookie phenom. You had a player who reached base a total of 9 times in one game. That was Shohei Ohtani in that Game 3. Obviously, 4 of them were due to intentional walks, but the guy was on base 9 times. Like this, think about it. And I'm not even done here. One more for you. A game-tying 9th inning homer that flipped the World Series. Obviously not a walk-off since the Dodgers were the visiting team in the final game, but ultimately the game-tying home run that ultimately set up the go-ahead later to come in extras. But that game-tying home run, outside of Bill Mazeroski walking it off for Pittsburgh back in, 1960, shot heard around the world. That was the bottom of the 9th. We haven't had anything of the like in the 9th inning, top or bottom, since then when Miguel Rojas joined the club by tying it up. All of that, and dare I say, and then some, happened in this World Series. Now, we could just stop there and think about how eventful it was. If you watched it, and if you didn't, boy, were you missing out. If you watched it, you didn't even have to be a baseball diehard. You don't even have to be a baseball casual. You could be someone who never indulges in the sport of Major League Baseball, let alone the playoffs, and you walked away from that not just entertained, but quite possibly with your mind utterly blown. And there are aspects and ramifications of this World Series that are going to continue to blow my mind for years to come. For the simple fact, the team that played better, and I've mentioned this to multiple people already. I mentioned it to Aaron, my producer, and the brains behind the operation here at Go Live Vegas. I mentioned that before the mics were hot and we came on live for you guys right now just a few minutes ago when I came in studio. How often do you see an instance where the better team, the team that performs better, the team that plays better across the board in all departments, how often do you see that team in any sport lose when they perform better, let alone in the sport of baseball? You'll see upsets in the Super Bowl if a team controls the line of scrimmage or the favored team turns the ball over. Basketball is a game of runs. A lot of things can flip in the matter of in a jiffy, just a dash in a basketball game where you no longer even care about who the better team is, who the weaker team is. It's a game of runs. It's going to swing back and forth like a pendulum. The team that plays better collectively throughout the series may not always win that either. But usually in baseball, hockey, you have the productivity in the line changes. If the third line is a big drop off from the first 2 lines, that could play a difference in the series, even if the team is heavily favored or better on paper. Usually in baseball, though, if you do these 2 things, if you out-hit the other team, and if you outpitch the other team, especially in the postseason, you are going to walk away with the win. And I cannot recall a single instance since I started following, and boy, let me tell you, I love Major League Baseball and I love the Fall Classic. I cannot recall a single instance where, looking back on it, I saw a team who was better on the mound, who was better at the plate, who for the most part was better defensively, and all around was just more productive 1 through 9 in the batting order and out there defensively on the field. I cannot remember a time where the team who was superior in those aspects wound up losing the World Series. Well, folks, that happened for the first time that I could ever recall at least it was solidified just this past Saturday, and it happened over the course of the last week. The Dodgers' bats went cold. They had a brilliant rotation who dominated throughout the regular season, who absolutely dominated in the playoffs. All the things that we knew to be true about the Dodgers heading into the year, given the fact they won it a year ago and we knew how formidable they were going to be, all of those things rang true for them, even if in the regular season they weren't quite as dominant as we may have initially expected them to be. There's a reason why they were the third seed. There's a reason why they were playing in the wild card round. But once that wild card round begun, and we saw them, that wild card series rather, and we saw them win easily in those 3 games against Cincinnati, and then take care of Philadelphia in pretty much dominant fashion other than one game, and another game that Philadelphia essentially handed to them, but that's on the Phillies. Dodgers capitalize. They find themselves in the pennant, where they have their most dominant outing yet. They're big favorites after doing what they did to Milwaukee in the pennant. You think that whether, there's all this talk about are they good for baseball, are they not good for baseball? Again, we'll get into that. But you at the very least, love them or hate them, you had to think going into the World Series against Toronto, who was battle-tested, who dominated the Yankees in the divisional round, and who played brilliantly and in clutch fashion against Seattle in the pennant to win in 7 games to advance, as good as Toronto was, as explosive and hot as their bats were, you had to think that, okay, this is the Dodgers to lose, and the Dodgers should dictate, given their rotation and given their bats, what happens in this series. When ultimately it was the Blue Jays rotation, the Blue Jays bullpen, and the Blue Jays bats that wound up dictating the majority of it. Yet when it was all said and done, it wasn't enough. They hit better. They pitched better. They all in all just were more consistent. They executed at a sharper rate, at a finer rate. And yet through it all, the Dodgers, all they needed was a situation to where they could extend this. And that came in Game 6. You have the heartbreaker in Game 3 off of Freddie Freeman's walk-off that goes 18 innings. You think, man, how did the Blue Jays recover from that? Dodger Stadium, 2 more games left. They dominated. They dominated Shohei Ohtani. They dominated Blake Snell. It didn't matter. Games 4 and 5 were all Toronto to the point where you thought, is this even going to go 7 in favor of the Dodgers? Where a lot of people heading in, rightfully so, thought it may not even go 7 in way of the Dodgers with the Blue Jays on the other side of it. You were hoping the Blue Jays could make it to 7. At the end of Game 5, you were wondering if the Dodgers would, especially going back to Toronto in front of that incredible crowd in that great venue. Going from Dodger Stadium in L.A. back to Canada with that momentum, a 3-2 series lead. You had it locked up. Game 6 for the most part. You had Mookie Betts finally coming alive. Terrible slump throughout the series. He has a big moment. And even then, in Game 6, it is there for the taking for the Blue Jays. And next thing you know, like I mentioned, the double play, the 7-4, 3 double play that ended it, that allowed it to go to Game 7. Next thing you know, it's Game 7. Bo Bichette in the 3rd inning, they jump out 3-0. And you're thinking, all right, the Dodgers were clutch yesterday when they needed to be, and yet it's still not going to matter because Toronto, they're just better. Plain and simple. Toronto is the better team. It's theirs for the taking. Their stars are showing up. Their role guys are showing up. 1 through 9, they are making contact. They are getting on the bases, and their pitching staff is really getting it done. And yet, next thing you know, Max Muncy, you get into the bullpen. You put on Trey Savage. You think maybe he has his Madison Bumgarner moment. No. Lo and behold, later, it's a pitcher for the Dodgers who has their ultimate 2014 Mad Bum type of moment in the form of Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Now, before we get into that, let's just acknowledge, though, Max Muncy cuts into the lead. Home run, right? Next thing you know, you put on your Savage. He's picking up some steam. The Muncy home run, you take him out. You go deeper in the bullpen. You put on Hoffman as a closer. And when you're entering that 9th inning, there was a 91% chance in terms of the projections that was going to go in way of the Blue Jays. even after the Dodgers were able to show some life with that Muncy home run, 91% chance, probability for Toronto to win that game, not just outright, period, but in that ninth inning. They were 3 outs away, and next thing you know, Miguel Rojas makes history. Oh, and by the way, the guy who was there for that 7-4 double play the day before, who made it? Miguel Rojas. In the game, who winds up making a throw to home with Will Smith's toe on the bag? That would have been the walk-off to end it all. Miguel Rojas wasn't even in the lineup in the early morning of Friday, heading into Game 6. Dave Roberts puts him in. He's the hero late in Game 6. He's the hero late in Game 7. When all the Dodgers stars, it seemed like they wouldn't show up and they wouldn't be able to get the job done this time around, the Dodgers dug in, the Dodgers showed the resiliency, and ultimately the Dodgers' experience is what got it done. When I talk about experience, it's not necessarily a lack thereof that's the issue. It wasn't the Blue Jays' lack of playoff experience that hurt them. They were the better team. They had it won. It was the Dodgers' ability to tap into that playoff experience that helped them. Not in the sense that it was anything that the Blue Jays had to their detriment or lacked to their detriment. It was just something the Dodgers had to their benefit. This is what the Dodgers do. They have the championship experience. They have the depth to where, okay, even if our stars aren't showing up, even if outside of one great game Ohtani had, he's not doing much. Even if Mookie's in a slump. Teoscar Hernandez didn't do a whole lot with the slugging. Freddie Freeman was a little bit hot and cold. All these guys in the top of the order, Max Muncy was hot and cold. Yet when it mattered, Muncy, Rojas, Will Smith, guys who have been on the team forever, way before the Ohtanis and the Yamamotos and the Mookies and the Freddie Freemans got there. Guys who have been on this roster for a while, who have made their bones, who are battle-tested. They're the ones who allowed this to happen. Will Smith's toe on the plate. It goes into extra innings, right? You put Pages back in the lineup. He makes the incredible catch once you get into extra innings off of Ernie Clement's bat. And that keeps the game going. You saw so many instances where it looked like the Blue Jays, even with the Dodgers hanging tough, were going to be able to put it away, and they couldn't finish the fight. And that is the World Series in a nutshell. One team performed better, yet it wasn't enough, because despite hitting and pitching better collectively for the most part than the Dodgers, when they needed to seize the moment, they couldn't land the knockout blow. It allowed the Dodgers, even on wobbly knees, spaghetti legs, leaning on the ropes. They may have been cut. They may have been bleeding. You could tell I'm a fight fan. I use fight analogies all the time. But that's what we saw. They were almost down for the count, but you couldn't put them on the canvas. And by not being able to put them on the canvas, by Vladimir Guerrero not being able to knock one out in the ninth, by Ernie Clement's ball not being able to fall to the ground. And he was incredible. 30 hits in the postseason. He was on fire. Barger was on fire. On-base machine. We saw Vladimir Guerrero play great the entirety of the postseason. George Springer, right? One of the best postseason players we've ever seen in recent memory. He guts out an injury that keeps him out for some time. He comes back in Game 6 and Game 7, and given the injury, played very well. It's not like the Blue Jays, quote-unquote, choked or didn't show up. They just didn't make the ultimate play when they needed to, whether it be the walk-off play in the ninth inning or in extra innings when they made contact, when they had bases loaded in Game 6 and poor base running cost them, or even in moments in Game 3 when it went 18 innings and ended at almost midnight Pacific, right, on the West Coast. And you saw, again, the Blue Jays is not able to seal the deal. In order to beat the Dodgers, you have to break the Dodgers, because we just saw an instance where they brought their B game and it was enough to win the World Series. When does that ever happen? You may see it again in football, hockey, basketball, because there are more variables in those sports. Baseball, usually, since it's so quantifiable and since it's so statistical and, numbers based, usually if you outperform the other team in all those categories, you're going to win. But there's outliers to everything. There are variables, and the variables come in the form of the Dodgers. And, yeah, they had to get some breaks. You had the Game 6 ball that was a dead ball that got wedged behind the stop, right? You had, obviously, the base running for the Blue Jays, miscues. Ultimately, you can make the case that it was the reason why they couldn't seal the deal and put the Dodgers down with that knockout punch because of the base running. Davis Schneider in Game 3, bad miscue on the base running. Could have won him the game. Addison Barger, as great as he was getting on base, bad base running miscue in Game 6 allowed for that play to happen. Kike Hernandez makes the throw. Rojas is there. Barger's leading way too far off a second. Couldn't get back to second in time. In Game 7, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, IKF. I know there's a lot of talk on whether or not he should have slid or slid head first. You know, it's a force out. All he had to do was run through the bag. Whatever. It's easy to armchair quarterback 2 days later. But even so, you go back and watch that on the Will Smith play, his toe is definitely down. But if IKF gets a proper lead, he's there before anyway. It doesn't matter. So you have Barger going too far off in Game 6. You have IKF not leading far enough off in the third. These are the miscues that allowed the Dodgers to stay in the fight. And when you're not tacking on insurance runs, right? Again, you had the big Bo Bichette 3-run dinger, but you couldn't score any runs in the fourth, in the fifth, in the sixth, even if it was just little choppers here and there to get guys across, to get guys to score. You couldn't do it. And that's why you allowed Max Muncy to cut into the lead when he hit that home run. It didn't seem that drastic of a score, even though up to that point, the game was all Toronto. That's why when you get to the ninth inning and Miguel Rojas ties it, you think, well, what the hell happened? It's been all Toronto. They didn't extend the lead enough. That's how you beat the Dodgers. I've been saying it for years. I've been saying it back before they were even the super team they are now. Because they've always been so good at getting on base, you have to constantly score insurance runs. You have to give your pitchers run support. Where now, here we are in 2025, they have the best team they've ever had, at least in this current run, right, in this Dave Roberts run, and maybe the best team modern day recent history of baseball has seen, period. And even then, they weren't up to snuff as far as the numbers. But that doesn't mean you can coast. You have to go for the throat. You have to put your foot down. And as productive and as efficient as the Toronto Blue Jays were, that is why we sit here and the Dodgers are back-to-back champs, hoisting their 9th ever Commissioner's Trophy, and the Blue Jays are still in the hunt after 32 years, despite having an opportunity to win it in Game 6 and Game 7. Ultimately, that was the difference. The fact that the Blue Jays just could not seal the deal. They could not break the Dodgers. That is the only way to effectively beat the Dodgers, because this team is so good, they can be an anomaly. They can be an outlier, and that proved to be true in this Fall Classic. But when you have everything you saw there, when you have a team who was so good like Toronto and a team who was so scrappy and so battle-tested and resilient and experienced like the Dodgers, and who were able to go back on their role players of the past like the Dodgers, even with this super team, all of these narratives, and then on top of it, Yoshinobu Yamamoto with perhaps the greatest pitching performance in the history of postseason baseball. As I wrap up here, I mentioned Madison Bumgarner, right? We were thinking maybe Trey Savage, right? On the, 1 day, 2 days rest. You throw the starter out there in a relief situation for him to close the game, to win the game, to put it on ice for you. And next thing you know, you're down in the annals of history. We're still talking about Madison Bumgarner, the 2014 Giants, when they did exactly that. And Trey Savage had an opportunity to do it. We see him get touched by Max Muncy, goes for yard. Next thing you know, he's out, and you have to go to your closers. We did not envision, at least up to that point in the game, right, 8th, 9th inning, that Yamamoto, who has been the absolute MVP for the Dodgers up to that point, you just didn't know it was going to be the case because it wasn't looking like they were going to win. But once they battled back into that game, and once you know that Yoshi was going to take that mound, that's when the collective feeling started to turn. Because never at any point in any of Yamamoto's postseason appearances could anybody get anything going against him. And next thing you know, even with bases loaded, even after walking a couple guys, Barger was on a 4-0 walk. It's not like Yamamoto was absolutely, utterly dominant in the fact that he was going 1, 2, 3 up and down. No, but he wasn't letting them send anything deep. And when Alejandro Kirk steps up with 1 out and bases loaded on a 1-2 count, all you needed was the right pitch. Can't get the bat right on it. Bat breaks. Can't get any kind of launch on it. Double play. Yet again, a double play effectively just great infielding and great defensive play effectively ends it back-to-back, Game 6 and Game 7. The difference is Game 6, Toronto still had a chance to call themselves World Series champs. They just had to get the job done, and it looked like they were going to until they didn't. And it still just rattles my mind that we sit here on a Monday morning and the Dodgers, as good as they were, as incredible of a team as they are, still was able to get it done and once again call themselves the champions of Major League Baseball. And it was off of the arm of Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Looking comparatively to him and Madison Bumgarner in 2014, their record in the series, 2-0 for Bumgarner in 2014, 3-0 in 2025 for Yamamoto, 21 innings for Bumgarner in 2014, 17.2 for Yamamoto, 291 to 235 in the pitches, 1 earned run to 2 earned runs. Madison Bumgarner, Yamamoto, both won MVP. I get it. Dodgers and the Dodgers and the Giants, their fan bases can't stand each other. It's a great rivalry. You're going to debate till you're blue in the face at the end of time who was the more dominant, who was the more impressive. But ultimately, that's the tier we're talking about now. And we saw what Yamamoto was able to do throughout the regular season. We saw what he was able to do throughout the postseason. I don't care who wins the Cy Young. I don't care who has the best numbers. The Dodgers are sitting here today celebrating amongst their faithful as champions because they have the best pitcher on the planet. And the best pitcher on the planet, when he needed to, showed up and sealed the deal. Sure, you had to get a broken bat by Alejandro Kirk. And sure, again, you had to have some base running miscues by IKF, just like you had from the Blue Jays throughout the entirety of the series. But when you're good, you make your own luck. And when you have an opportunity to put the game away, and you're a team like Toronto who has all of the momentum for the most part, when you just look at, even in the Game 6 with the Dodgers winning, Toronto wrestled it right back in Game 7. There was never an instance where it truly swung the way of the Dodgers until the very end, where all they had to do was make a couple of plays, and next thing you know, not only did those couple of plays give them a chance to win the World Series, we will look back on them as the defining reason they won the World Series. This was a World Series that had everything. You had, at one point, you had benches clearing. It was just so early in the game, you forgot about it because so much more was to come. You had incredible action. You had incredible drama and tension always around. Dave Roberts, for all his criticism, the management moves he made in Game 6 with Rojas and everything he did in Game 7, utilizing his full staff, all 4 starters in the rotation saw action in Game 7. You saw the Blue Jays do it. They went for broke, and both teams emptied the tank. And when both teams empty the tank, and when one team statistically plays better than the other, usually that team wins. But hey, there are variables for everything, and it looks like the 2025 Dodgers are so damn good, they're just one of them. And now they sit as back-to-back champs because, hey, just like Joe Davis on the play-by-play, the final call when it was all wrapped up, he said, in order to beat the champs, you got to knock them out. And Toronto did a damn good job of hurting them, but they couldn't knock them out when it mattered. And when you have a team that good, a team that experienced, a team that's savvy defensively, and a team with that kind of pitching, batting, combination, even if you keep them down for majority of the series, unless you put them away, you're not winning that series. And that's why, as unfortunate as for Blue Jays fans, as heartbreaking as it is for their players and that roster, that is why they sit here still longing for that commissioner's trophy that they'll continue to have to pursue, because ultimately it was right in front of their faces and they just couldn't take it. And it's unfortunate if you're on that camp, or if you're in that camp. And I know a lot of people are saying that the Dodgers, this win isn't good for baseball. The Dodgers going back to back is not good for baseball. When you have a World Series this good, that goes 7 games, that gives it a Game 7 classic where people are wondering if it's the best baseball game they've ever seen. When you have television ratings that have increased across all networks that carry baseball, when you have network coverage that has gotten so much exponentially better across the board, I'm talking major increases, 28 type of percent increases, 17, 18, 19 on some networks, 28% on other networks, huge viewership increases on the television ratings. The All-Star Game, the new format, was a success. Everyone loves the speed of the game with the pitch clock and everything in between, right? And even then, you'll still have some classic baseball moments where you have a game that lasts for 5 hours that goes 18 innings. But when you have that type of drama, when you have that type of star power, and when you have that type of intrigue that has surrounded baseball all year long, no, The Dodgers winning this does not hurt baseball. If anything, it only helps it. The reason why? Because baseball's fresh off of its best year in years, and it's fitting that we got perhaps the best World Series of all time to culminate it. Baseball's doing just fine. The younger demographics catching on. The casual fan base is catching on. Baseball is in a better spot than it has been in a long time, and this World Series only further solidified that. And it's fitting that even if you're upset with the result and even if you didn't want to see the Dodgers go back-to-back, it just seems very apropos that it all ended this way on what was a great year, very much a victory lap for baseball at a time where they probably didn't even expect to be taking any kind of victory laps. So Rob Manfred and company, say what you want about him, think what you want about him. This is huge. And if you're upset about the Dodgers paying all that money, right, billion-dollar payroll, remind yourself, 75% of what they earn. This is a team that leads the Major League Baseball in attendance year in and year out. This is a team that is next to the Yankees is the biggest brand in Major League Baseball. They put 75% of their revenue back into the team. The Dodgers aren't ruining baseball. The teams that refuse to be like the Dodgers are ruining baseball. Toronto's up there. They're fifth in payroll. The reason why Toronto had the guys to give the Dodgers such a series, because they spend a lot of money. You have other big teams out there in big markets that are going to continue to spend a lot of money. They're going to be relevant all off season long. They're going to be relevant come springtime because they're spending the money. No one's spending the type of money the Dodgers are spending and ultimately bringing in Ohtani, bringing in Yamamoto. That's what took a very, very good team and a great organization currently into the best organization in Major League Baseball and one of the best front offices in all sports, period. And now you can officially say they're a dynasty because they spent the money. It's not a matter of them spending money. It's a matter of the remainder of Major League Baseball not doing it often enough. The Dodgers owners know how much money they're making. Therefore, they will pour it back in the organization. There are plenty of other billionaire owners out there who are at the helm of these clubs who can do the same thing, but instead they line their pockets. The Dodgers don't need to do that. They don't want to do that. They want to put their money back on the field. They want to flip that revenue stream back into the ball club, and this is what happens when you do so. So don't give me this whole baseball needs a cap. There's going to be a lockout. The Dodgers ruined everything. Baseball doesn't need a cap. Baseball needs a floor. And if you want more parity and if you want more teams doing what the Dodgers, and even the Blue Jays for that matter, are doing, start spending and stop lining your pockets, because that is how you really help baseball. That is how you create parity. Hate the Dodgers all you want. I get it. Sports, we always need a villain. We had it for years in my Yankees. If we get it now in the form of the Dodgers, so be it. But don't say they're ruining baseball, especially on a year when baseball was everything but ruined. In fact, baseball sits better now than it has sat in a long, long time. And even if the Dodgers are sitting at the top, that deserves to be said, because what a year it was for the sport, what a series it was, what a Game 7 it was, and what a run this currently is for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And for any of you watching or listening thinking that me emphasizing the Blue Jays being the better team is by any way a knock on the Dodgers, no, it's not. I mean that in the most complimentary way imaginable. Your team didn't even play that great and was still good enough to get it done. That's impressive, and that shows a lot of moxie, a lot of resilience, and a whole lot of championship experience. Crushing blow for the Blue Jays, but man, if you're a part of that Los Angeles Dodgers organization, you are a part of an organization that is doing it right. And organizations who do it right set themselves up for success. So I can't remember the last time I went that long on baseball, but I had to. I had to because, we have a whole offseason. It's going to be a great offseason. A lot of teams are going to load up. Don't kid yourself after seeing 2 years now since this whole Yamamoto and Shohei business with the deferred payments, right? The Dodgers, they brought in Roki this past year. They're going to make moves again, whether it be in Japan or on the domestic front in the States. They're going to bring more people in. Because the Dodgers know when to cut baggage and they know when to bring the right guy in. More teams need to emulate that. I think we're going to start seeing it, and those teams with the money to spend, which a lot of them are in that category, right, in that camp. The question is, are they going to decide to spend? Because that is how you're going to dethrone the Dodgers. Until then, though, they deserve a lot of credit for what they've been able to do because they played baseball the right way, and even when they're not playing at their best, it is still enough to call themselves the champions of Major League Baseball. I cannot wait to see what happens moving forward as far as television ratings, as far as overall revenue, and as the overall just status of the league, because everything about baseball is on the up and up. And we like to think everything is on the up and up on the Go Live Vegas front, too, as we get ready to go to break. But I just can't emphasize this enough, again, as we're back and running on Student of the Game. But be sure to check out all of our talk shows, our live streams, our podcasts, any of our up-and-coming reality series. We have so many different things we could do on the Go Live Vegas front that makes it all so fun, tap into the different social media and digital elements. So be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on all of our platforms so you, too, can join in on the fun and you can be a part of the conversation. And that conversation on the other side is going to shift on the NFL front, most cases on a Monday afternoon. That's what I'm opening with. But, of course, I had to start with baseball, had to get all that off my chest. And now that I have, we can go ahead and focus on pretty much the main thing the rest of the way. As good as baseball is, eventually it has to end. And then all the focus in November goes on to football, both on the pro and college front. So we're going to hit on that on the other side. Don't go anywhere. It's Student of the Game on a Monday from the Go Live Vegas studio.
You do not.
Oh my God. So look.
So I can sit down and say, I'm having a really bad day. I'm sorry. You are watching Midlife Mischief.
How are you with avocados?
I love avocados. Are they a fruit?
If nobody eats, I shut down the whole house. I was so done. It was over.
I have menopause. We finally did it!
Interesting.
Go Live Vegas Studios, a unique multi-camera social media virtual content creators paradise. We offer high-end services using live streaming and film production for your personal or corporate, commercial or event and campaign needs. Pre-record or live stream to your audience on multiple social media platforms simultaneously. Fun and interactive with social media comments, phone lines, live remotes, audio Foley sounds, and Snapchat filters. Be creative, get recognized, and make money. We help you by providing an all in-house production team. Visit our website at golive.vegas.
All right, fun stuff. I'm getting into it when I'm schwitzing. I mean, to be fair, it actually is a little warm for because we always talk about how we're on the other side of Halloween. We're in early November now. It's going to be the holiday season before we know it. And it's, 80, 81 degrees in the Las Vegas Valley. So a little warm, definitely. It's one of those days where you walk out in jeans. You're all like, I'm normally wearing jeans in November, but I shouldn't be wearing them right now, given how it feels. But, hey, that's how I am. Whenever I talk about something historic, I get a little excited. And that World Series was certainly historic. Something else that was historic that happened yesterday. For the first time in his career, Patrick Mahomes. You may know him, the current face of the NFL, generational player, Mount Rushmore quarterbacks already, kind of the guy who essentially moves the needle in the league. 44% completion percentage for the first time in his career. And it happened yesterday in a loss to the Buffalo Bills in the marquee game of the week. And it's no mystery that I was going to lead with that when talking the NFL. What's so interesting about Buffalo and Kansas City to me, and again, if you're watching, listening, by all means, join the conversation, jump in the comments, like, subscribe, follow us, so you can be in on all the discussion on all things football, because that's what we're talking the rest of the way here. And again, this is the best time of year for sports. Basketball's off and running, hockey is off and running, college basketball tips off tonight. Like, this truly is the most wonderful time of year, and it kind of is all the way through the holidays. But we're also at the point in the NFL season where now we know who's legit, we know who isn't, and we're slowly going to start, inching towards that playoff picture conversation. Now, as it looks right now, Buffalo, they're going to be fine. Kansas City, they're going to be fine. And until, yesterday at this time, until that game was all, set in stone, we figured Kansas City was right back where they were a few years ago. Not just, the team with a good defense and a veteran quarterback who could win clutch games. But no, the team with a dynamic offense who could go up and down the field, deep threat receivers, Rashee Rice back in the mix, Xavier Worthy's healthy, Hollywood Brown, all these guys making plays downfield. We're thinking this is the best Kansas City offense that we've seen since the early days when Mahomes first got there, right? And when Andy Reid and, it was Matt Nagy and then it was Eric Bieniemy and all these guys were cooking, all of it was off of the deep threat attack and the speed of the receiver position, the explosive playmaking ability. We've seen that from Kansas City now the last, 3 weeks to a month or so. And we were wondering with Buffalo, that kind of defense, that kind of secondary, the injuries they've had, we were wondering if Buffalo could hold up any type of resistance to that passing attack at all. And boy, did they. We saw a Buffalo Bills team who was physical. We saw a Buffalo Bills team who did not fear Mahomes at all. And we saw a Buffalo Bills defense who, quite frankly, hasn't been that good this year, but had as good of a moment as you could possibly have against this Chiefs offense. Grand scheme of things, I don't think it means that much, because what happens when they play in the playoffs? Oh, that's right, Buffalo always loses. Now, I don't mean to diminish what they've done. I don't mean to just chalk it up to that, but it's kind of inevitable at this point, right? Like, it's kind of all null and void until you can beat them in the playoffs, right? Everything Toronto was doing in that World Series ultimately proved to be null and void because they couldn't do enough to put the Dodgers away. Well, until the Chiefs lose to the Bills aren't doing enough to put the Chiefs away, because that's ultimately what this is all going to come back down to and how we evaluate it all when it's all said and done, the postseason. Regular season, we've seen Buffalo and Josh Allen perform well. He has a winning record against them in the regular season. He won there in clutch fashion last year. This year, they were even more dominant. They didn't need to be clutch. They had the lead the majority of the game. Kansas City battled back into it late. That game was pretty much all Buffalo. And we know how good they are with Josh Allen's legs. We know how different this offense is with the James Cook element, and how their rushing attack just completely changes everything and may cover up some of the flaws they have at the receiver position. We know what Buffalo is, but ultimately what Buffalo is has worked for years in recent memory in the regular season. The question is, when is it going to work in the postseason? And most of what they do does work in the postseason. The reason why they're always sitting on their couch, though, come February or late January, it's because they can't get over the Chiefs. So I so wish I could sit here in front of you guys and say, this year it's going to be different. The Buffalo Bills just proved that. But then again, no. Because by that logic, they've done this before and have still faltered in the postseason. I want to see the Buffalo team that doesn't falter in the postseason. I mean, everyone does. We talk about how last year, because all the conversations of the Dodgers, are they bad for baseball now? Last year the conversation was, are the Chiefs bad for football? I don't know if we're going to – Aaron, what do you think of the Florida Panthers? You're the hockey guy. Do you think what they're doing is good for hockey or bad? You can just give me a yes or basic yes or no type of answer. It helps to have a dynasty, right? It helps to have a dynasty, I think, because it brings that much more attention to the game. When you have a big time, going back to the fight analogies, when you have a big time prize fight, it helps a lot when you have the Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor type figures there, right? And now Ilya Taporia, Canelo Alvarez, Terrence Crawford, you want guys who you are going to be invested in because people are ordering that pay-per-view or going on that streaming platform to either root like crazy for a fighter or to the polar opposite, to root against them with every fiber of your being. It's the same thing in team sports. The Dodgers help baseball because they bring that to the table, just like the Yankees did before them. The Patriots did a great job of doing that for football. Now it's the Chiefs. You've had it multiple times in hockey with the Blackhawks, the Lightning, now the Panthers. And for basketball, you had the Golden State Warriors. And now who knows? Maybe OKC could go on a run. We'll have to see. We'll talk about that in the next couple of weeks as we get deeper into the basketball season. But we see these teams, though, even Kansas City, who got bounced hard in the Super Bowl, they're still the reigning AFC champs. We could joke about how they got their ass kicked by Philly all we want. Until you beat them in the AFC, they are the team to beat in the AFC. And beating them in the regular season doesn't change that, unfortunately. It may make you think a little bit differently about what happens if they match up in the postseason. But at the same time, a lot of people, we talked about it on this very show or in this very studio on another show I hosted, right, with Steve and Jimmy. We talked about that until we were blue in the face, how this last January, could be Buffalo's year. Lo and behold, though, we saw what happened. The play calling in the AFC Championship game was horrendous. The play calling for Kansas City was brilliant. Buffalo made mistakes. Kansas City didn't. So sure, 2 weeks later, they may have gotten their ass kicked by the Eagles, but they're still the class of the AFC. And in order to become that, Ric Flair, to be the man, you got to beat the man. You got to beat him. So it's. I want to give Buffalo so much credit, but I know that we're kind of stuck in the mud here until we get a little bit closer to the postseason. And we also have to know for sure if they're even going to play each other in the postseason anyway. Maybe Buffalo gets lucky and this is the year they don't have to play Kansas City in the playoffs. Who knows? But all this talk about Kansas City being done and over the hill, even with yesterday's result, their offense is a completely different animal than it's been in years past, and their defense isn't as dominant. What's very odd, though, is that offense got bottled up against a Buffalo defense who is not particularly good at all. So it makes you wonder, if they were to play again, are things going to be different? It's Andy Reid, after all, the best offensive mind in the modern era. He may be the best offensive coach, period, in the history of football, right? I doubt if they play again, things will look exactly the same. But that could be the same for Buffalo. Because Buffalo, even though they don't have that stud receiver, they don't have the flash necessarily on the perimeter, they have all the flash out of the backfield with Allen and with Cook. And when you have that type of threat, or two of those types of threats out of the backfield, you're going to be tough for anybody. That's why I refuse to count Buffalo out, regardless of what you think of McDermott, regardless of what you think of the team as a whole, because they have two guys who really can actually get you there. But are those two guys going to be enough to beat the guy who they beat yesterday? Because they're going to continue to beat him in the regular season, apparently. That trend works in their benefit, not in the postseason. So that's what's most interesting to me about the NFL slate in terms of the immediate takeaways. That was the marquee game anyway. Across the board, the biggest takeaway, though, aside from that, regarding Week 9 of the NFL, was how freaking awesome it was. We get treated to an iconic classic Game 7 on Saturday night. Not necessarily a great weekend in college football, but a great Game 7 on Saturday night and a great slate of action where pretty much all the games were close yesterday. Because the NFL needed that, because it's been a damn good NFL regular season so far. On a week-by-week basis, we've had some good games every year. But Week 8, a little bit of a letdown. Kind of dropped back down to earth. Wasn't much. Very uneventful weekend of football. And then a week later, they got right back on track. And, it all culminates tonight with Dallas and Arizona on Monday Night Football. Could be more interesting than we realize, just because, obviously the health concerns of Kyler and the offense. You just never know. But Dallas's defense is so bad and their offense is so good that if Arizona's offense could somewhat match what they do, maybe you get an interesting game to effectively top this great NFL Week 10 slate off. And it didn't start great because we saw Baltimore beating up Miami pretty good in a game that resulted in Chris Greer, their GM, being fired. And even though, as of right now, Mike McDaniel and Tua's jobs remain the same, we are only going to continue to look at our crystal ball moving forward in that situation. But Baltimore, despite that being a one-sided game, Baltimore kicks off the Week 10 slate, reminding us all, oh, yeah, that's right. They're still there, and they're still as formidable as they come with Lamar Jackson. They're in quite the hole, and they can't afford to lose anymore, but they're hot, and they have their guy back, and their defense is playing a whole lot better, and they're not as beat up. You have Pittsburgh, right? Pittsburgh, great performance at home against Indianapolis. Now all the Monday morning talk is going to be, right? Has been the past couple hours, will be throughout the week until we see the Colts play again. We see how they bounce back. Now the talk is going to be, all right, well, this is the Daniel Jones that we saw in New York. This was the guy who we thought didn't have a place in the league as a full-time starter, and this is a reason why a lot of people weren't necessarily all in on the Colts despite having the best offense and the best record in football. This is why a lot of people were were bearish on him instead of bullish, because they were wondering when was when were you going to regress to the mean? When was Danny Dimes or Indiana Jones going to fall back down to earth? fell back down pretty hard. Actually was still productive throughout the course of the game because this offense really is a nice unit as far as their route concepts and the way they run the ball. But Pittsburgh's defense, they just pinned their ears back, forced turnovers, got after him in the pass rush, and we saw what happened. But most quarterbacks you do that against, Mahomes in the damn Super Bowl against Philadelphia, that's going to happen. So that may have been more about Pittsburgh than it was Indianapolis, but it's also fitting because we were ready to count Pittsburgh off last week at this time after that Sunday night loss to Green Bay. So now you have Pittsburgh and Baltimore, both relevant in a division that's not very good. You have the Bengals, whose offense seems to be just as good now that Flacco's there and Browning is out. It's looking like the Joe Burrow Bengals, yet their defense is bad as ever. You have that crazy finish with them losing to Chicago, ultimately taking the lead. You think the Bears are going to blow it. The Bears are going to be the punching bag for this whole next week. And just like that, Caleb Williams, he finds Colston Loveland, and the Bears wind up winning. And it's the same song, different verse. The Bengals scored 35, 40, 42 points and wind up losing because their defense is so bad, right? We could go on and on about it. Stafford played brilliantly with the Rams. The Rams and the Seahawks are two teams in the NFC I still don't think we talk enough about. We saw the Seahawks play great last Sunday. Washington, not only have they fallen back down to earth, they're probably the league's biggest disappointment, and their injury problems are only growing. Jaden Daniels, he got hurt again. It just, certain things are starting to really compound on top of each other for some of these teams where other teams, even though they've established themselves to be legit based off their identity of the 2025 season, we still can't fully trust them, right? We couldn't fully trust Minnesota in the long run last year. We knew they were good, and we gave credit to Darnold and Kevin O'Connell on that offense, but we really didn't know where it would end. We're starting to see that now to where you're kind of second-guessing the long run for these teams and their prospects rather than, second-guessing how they are in the immediate sense because we've had 9 weeks of football. We know who's good and who's not. Now the bigger question is, even if it seems premature, the bigger question is going to be who exactly finds themselves seated where and who is really going to be a threat come the postseason. Because, again, it's easy to throw Buffalo in there and Kansas City and Philadelphia and the Rams and some of these other teams, right? But ask yourself, who looks like the bona fide Super Bowl favorite right now? You could have said Kansas City, 36 hours ago, but that was a tough loss against a team that beat them up pretty good and held Mahomes for the first time ever under 50% in-game completion percentage for the first time in his career. That's something elite defenses do, let alone, a middle-of-the-road Buffalo Bills defense. So everyone can be got. That's kind of the collective moral of the story so far, the theme, if you will, the running theme of the season in 2025. And I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. I think it's as good as a scenario you could possibly ask for because all we talked about last year was, it's just going to be Kansas City and the refs and they're boring and, this and that. Well, now Kansas City's not boring. They're not getting bailed out, like at least what people are trying to make it seem like was the case, like it's been the past few years. And they've been vulnerable. They didn't look good in the early part of the season. They were 500 at one point, and after getting momentum back on their side, they just dropped a tough one yesterday. So Kansas City can be got. Buffalo can be had. They can, all of them. All of these teams at one point have had a tough loss. The Packers, we don't know what to make of the Packers. We don't know what to make of the Lions just because as good as they are, they're capable of laying an egg. That was a big win for the Vikings and J.J. McCarthy yesterday against Detroit, right? That was a big win for Carolina and those young players against Green Bay, who's now lost to Cleveland and Carolina for their 2 losses on the year, despite having key wins against good teams. It's just one of those years, and you always have parity in the NFL. It always is crazy. It's always weird, but this year especially is the case, and I absolutely love it. Like I really do. I think it's so good. You have the scrappy Broncos who win games late. You have the Patriots and Drake May. The 2024 quarterback class has just been absolutely stellar. A little bit of hot and cold element to them as well because they're still young. And sure, you may not know what to fully make of Caleb Williams yet, but he had a great game. And Michael Penix Jr. isn't winning a whole lot of games for Atlanta, but he had a great game. And you have Drake May looking like a playoff quarterback, right? Jaden Daniels, who was the rookie phenom last year, he's hurt. Bo Nix, who a lot of people, probably didn't give enough credit to last year, he's playing incredibly well. It's not just Sean Payton in the scheme. It's Bo Nix and his accuracy making key throws. We are seeing young year 2 quarterbacks really kind of stake their claim. And I think it's awesome because it just goes to show we're at a point now where a lot of teams have kind of shifted to what their identity, what their focus is going to be. And now we're going to see for the first time those teams. We've seen it from Philadelphia. We've seen it from Buffalo. We've seen it from Kansas City. I get it. From the Rams. Now we're going to see teams who are really kind of set to make a run for the first time. Like, we want to see the Jordan Love Packers really actually kind of do something because we haven't seen them really put it together. The Lions have had a nice run, but they had injuries last year. Can they stay healthy this year? There's a lot of question marks out there, even if on a personnel or coaching standpoint, some of these teams don't have as many question marks. And I think it's great. Bring on the parity, bring on the confusion, bring on the madness, and we got a whole lot of it yesterday. And another world, as I wrap this up, because I could talk about this for a whole nother hour, but I know we got to get out of here. The world of college football is no exception. We have the first ever of the season, the first ever playoff rankings tomorrow. We could expect who's going to be in the top three. You have undefeated Ohio State. You have undefeated Indiana. You have undefeated Texas A&M, who I believe is probably pound for pound the best team in the country right now. But outside of that, you had, 4 more top 10 teams go down, ranked teams, go down, many of them in the top 10 this past weekend. Every time. Miami, done. Playoff hopes, done. Now you're having coaches getting fired. Now you're having buyout talks for teams, not only guys, LSU, Clemson, and Penn State were not fringe programs heading into 2025. They were all expected by all the analysts and all the insiders and all the people who follow the sport closely. They were all expected to be in the playoff. A lot of people had LSU and Penn State playing in the playoff or in the College Football National Championship. They had LSU in the Final Four, Clemson in the Final Four. And now two of those 3 coaches are gone, and now we're wondering what the hell's going to happen with Dabo. Alabama, we were ready to ride off after they lost to Florida State. Alabama sits comfortably at 4. Georgia, they're not flashy, they're not pretty. They can't seem to beat Bama when they need to, but they're at number 5. I mean, the top 5, there's not a whole lot of mystery, but everything outside of that, there's a whole lot of mystery now. Tennessee, their playoff hopes are done. Miami, their playoff hopes are done. You got, Georgia Tech and Vanderbilt were great stories, fun stories. Haynes King and Diego Pavia are outstanding quarterbacks. They're done now. Like, it's just one of those things where for years we complained in college football how you knew beforehand, especially with a 14 playoff, it was going to be Georgia. It was going to be Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson. Maybe every now and then you get an outlier. You get a lucky, a wrench you could throw in the spoke. Now, it's every week you're getting a wrench thrown in the spoke. And we have 12 teams that fit in the playoffs. And we saw last year some teams on the bubble get in who you questioned, did they really deserve to be in? We're going to have that debate and then some all over again now because you probably have less clarity now than you did with the first year of the 12-team playoff. And this year they're doing reseeding. This year is going to be that much more interesting. It's not just 1 through 4 locked in stone the whole way through. No, depending on what you do in that given round, that respective round, that will determine where you are next. So we have all those things into play, and we're going to have 12 teams where a whole lot of them may not even be that good. They're obviously good. I'm talking about like that good, though. We don't have the clear-cut dominant team, and even if you want to say it's the Aggies or the Buckeyes or the Hoosiers, they don't have the resume. That's why I think A&M is the team. It's the only of the 3 undefeated. They're the only team who really has an impressive resume, big-time SEC wins, a big-time win against Notre Dame. They're going to have a big one against Texas at the end of the year. But for the most part, Indiana, Ohio State, and Texas A&M, they don't have much left on their schedule. The conference championships are really going to determine everything from here on out. And Indiana and Ohio State at this rate are going to have to play each other in the Big Ten title game. So what we're seeing on the NFL and college football week by week is just chaos. And I absolutely love it. We need more of it, right? We always say any given Sunday and this and that. No, this year it's actually any given Sunday. And we always say on college football, any Saturday someone could be upset. Sure, that's always going to be the case. But this year, the upsets don't even seem like upsets. They seem more like common practice to where it's not even an upset. It's just college football in 2025 being college football in 2025. And maybe that's on us. Maybe as far as how we handicap these teams, as far as how we gauge them in the offseason, in the preseason, in the August period when we get a lot of hype surrounding certain coaches and programs and quarterbacks and Heisman Trophy candidates. Maybe sometimes we put a little bit too much stock into that. But in the era of NIL and the transfer portal, I mean, it's a who's who. The marquee top-tier programs are still going to be good. They have the money. They have the resources to do so. but it's not a walk in the park anymore. And that's what makes it so damn fun. So even though the top 5 teams are probably going to sit pretty comfortably tomorrow when they do the first ever 2025 college football playoff rankings revealing, we're probably going to see in any order. It's probably going to be the order it is in right now with the AP poll, right? Ohio State, Indiana, A&M. And then right behind them, Alabama, Georgia, fine. But everything after that, week by week, if what we've seen so far this fall is any indication, we are going to have a whole lot of chaos, and I am all for it. Bring it on. The more madness, the better. I mean, and if you need any more proof, again, I'll wrap it off by going with what I opened with. Look at the World Series. You have everyone talking about baseball, where the past few years, all everyone could say about baseball is that it's boring, that it doesn't intrigue them, it doesn't capture their attention. We had a 7-game World Series that did that better than maybe any series ever, and it just works wonders the fact that as we push forward through November, it seems that the NFL and college football front will provide the same type of entertainment. Who knows if hockey and basketball do the same? They're off and running. We barely got to those today, if not at all. But don't worry, we will, because this is only the tip of the iceberg. Again, even though baseball's in the rearview mirror, I've talked about how this October, November period, the late fall kind of segue into the holidays, transitional type of time of year. It's just an absolute smorgasbord of entertainment and storylines in the world of sports. So if you're a sports talk host, if you're a sports media personality in any way, shape, or form, you absolutely love this. You're on cloud 9, and I am right now. But hey, here on Go Live Vegas, I host other shows as well. I'm involved in some of the remotes we have, some of the different podcasts and different live shows we have. So be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms. Like, subscribe, get involved with everything that we do here at Go Live Vegas. We love the interactive element. We want you to be a part of it. Aaron and Raquel are at the helm of it all. They want to reach out to you. We put our information out there. I mean, Aaron, do you still have that promo card that we threw up? Maybe we could throw, with the number and the info. If not, no big deal. Because, again, at this point, you know how to follow us. Like, subscribe, whether it be on social media, whether it be on our app, whether it be on Spotify. I think we're going to get back on Roku TV, of course, YouTube as well. There are all ways to stay in the loop, and we want you to do just that as we push forward into the holidays. Always a busy time with a lot to do here on Go Live Vegas. And, hey, look at me. I mean, I could have done this for 3 hours. You know me, I like to talk. But if you like to talk, you could do the same thing. And it could be about anything under the sun. You could be sitting in this very chair. You could have Aaron and Raquel come to you. So by all means, go check it out. We're going to continue to plug it hard. There's a lot of things that they're working on, in and out of the valley right now that have us really excited. So we're going to plug it as much as we can. But again, if you want to host a podcast or a show of your own, get in touch with them and reach out, because it really is as easy as that. Right now, for only $160 per hour, you could come get in on the fun yourself. Let's make your podcast a live one. Go Live Vegas. Let's do it right now. Again, we're a state-of-the-art broadcast studio designed for creators, brands, and entertainers who want to stand out, and we have all the capabilities through video and audio and social media and the digital presence to do exactly that. We're the ultimate podcast and live stream studio, so go check us out now. And again, the best way initially, outside of calling us and getting involved directly with Aaron and Raquel, just follow us on social media, because we'll always keep you in the loop there. So I thank you. I appreciate you. It's been a while since we did this, but boy, did we hit the ground running. And again, what a good time of year to do so. There's going to be a lot to talk about in the next few weeks, so don't go anywhere, because we will be right here from the Go Live Vegas studio to cover all of it. And again, anything we do in and outside the studio, stay in the loop as well, because we're expecting a fun final third, really final 2 months at this point of 2025 as we get closer and closer to the holidays. So we thank you. We appreciate you. We'll do it all again next time from the Go Live Vegas studio. Enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy the rest of your week, and catch us next time when we break it all down again here on Studio the Game. Have a good one, everyone.
Need to forget about everything, put away our problems, get along with each other and